All right. Good morning, everyone. Hello, welcome back. I am going to get started to make sure that we stay on our schedule here. And I'm going to go through some AI literacy stuff because I'm kind of a nerd. And as always, with all 3 years that I've done this so far, AI has, well, it's always a problem. But it always offers lots of opportunities as well. And so I think AI is super interesting. I don't try to overthink it. I try to keep it very simple. I think that AI is similar to any other way of getting information. It's a search engine in a lot of ways. It's just another way for students to access information that already exists. And so it's just part of our toolkit. It's going to be part of their toolkit. And so I was thinking about teaching AI literacy. And I want to do it at least within the context of maybe an assignment that you might do with them. So it's not just teaching students AI literacy because that doesn't sound interesting or fun, but if they're investigating a historical figure, then they might not even realize that they're actually just learning AI literacy. And investigating historical figure is something that we kind of do at every grade level. You learn about famous people. So that's the route I went, and we'll see how it goes. I've had 3 shots of espresso today. So I'm having a slight panic attack, but it's fine. So organization, I have a number of kind of steps to my presentation. What is AI and how does it work? We have to explain that to students. I'm just going to kind of wander so I can actually use this clicker. Spotting AI in the wild. How do we spot AI when we see it? How do we get information from AI? How do we break down our tasks when we're doing an assignment like this? So now we're kind of getting away from some of the AI stuff and more into our actual activity with the students. Then we have to do some investigation. We have to learn about historical figures. We can use AI for that. We can interview them, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen different ways of talking to famous people or book characters with AI. And presenting research. We have to present our information. Can we use AI for that? Not that we have to use AI for anything, not that we should use AI for everything, but this is kind of just an introduction to hopefully some tools, some of which you may have seen, some of which you may not have seen. And I didn't really focus on any one tool. I'm trying to focus more on the ideas because there are a billion tools and a billion ways of doing a lot of this, and all of our situations are different, all of our districts are different, all of the resources that we have access to are different. So. There are lots of ways of doing this. Other options are available. So step 1, what is AI? And this is these are questions that I would ask students of any grade level, but I mean, we can do it in here too. For instance, what can AI do? Who would like to answer? What can AI do? Just about everything?
But not my laundry.
Not yet. It can't cook dinner. It can't do our laundry. What else? But what can it do? It can make a list. It can give you lesson plans. It can condense ideas. All useful things. What? Summaries.
It can create not passive-aggressive signs.
It can. It can rewrite my emails so they sound, less stressed. Lots of good ideas there. And I think students will have lots of good ideas for this question too. How does it know so many things? That's a question I would ask my student. What might you answer? How does it know so many things? Because we put them in there? It's what?
It has a large bank of language that it uses to spit out what it thinks would be the best answer to your question using words that it thinks mean something.
Yeah, you've watched some videos on how LLMs work. Well, it knows so many things. Where does it learn what it knows? Where did it get this information? From Facebook? Where?
Large collections of data.
Large collections of data, like what? Reddit? Wikipedia? The internet? Generally? Books, lyrics? It knows a lot of things. And a lot of this information it got is online. Is there information, especially online, that isn't true? Obviously. So it does know a lot of things, and it knows a lot of true things, But if it reads the internet, it also knows a lot of things that aren't true, right? So one example that I have on how AI works that I think is really fun, has anyone used AutoDraw before or has seen it? A few people. So I'll show you what AutoDraw looks like. It is a fun little tool. And I think it's a good way to show students how AI kind of works. So if I make a little circle and make another circle, it starts guessing. Are you drawing glasses? What are you drawing here? Are you drawing an egg? Maybe if I draw like this, forgive my shaky hand here. This is terrible, I wouldn't buy that, but all right. So yes, it guessed car. I can click on car and it makes a little car. And you can do all sorts of things. I don't know, maybe, what if I can get like a toothbrush? Can I get a toothbrush out of this? We're getting, oh, is that a toothbrush? That's the toothbrush. So it tries to guess what you're drawing, and it's kind of a fun activity to go through with students and explain how did it know that, you know? How did it know that 2 circles and a little box on top might be a car? And I have another little app that kind of builds on that. So that's a fun little tool to play with. But another app that kind of builds on that, has anyone used QuickDraw? Okay, a few people have used QuickDraw. I think these two together really introduce students to the idea of seeing kind of how AI guesses at things, and then we can use QuickDraw to explain, but how does it guess that? Where does it get its information from? So QuickDraw allows you to draw, and you have to draw very quickly, and this is, I have to draw a lion in 20 seconds with my shaky mouse hand. So we're gonna see if I can draw a line, and it's gonna start guessing. And actually, it'll start guessing out loud because that's what QuickDraw does. So I'll draw it from the front perspective. So I'll draw, I see a circle, you do. A bracelet, I'm gonna draw, okay, planet. I'm gonna give it some little, okay, so it actually knew that was a lion. I'm gonna draw a television. That one's pretty easy. I think it'll understand the rabbit ears. No? How about a screen? Okay. A hot tub. What perspective do I? Let's do a isometric hot tub. Okay. Okay. We're gonna draw an isometric. Okay. And then animal migration. A mermaid. Oh, okay. It doesn't know. Yeah. Let's do some steam. Maybe some steam. Okay. It doesn't know. Okay. A kangaroo. Okay. So you have 6. There's 6 things that you draw, and then your little game ends. I'm gonna draw, that's a beaver tail. Oh no, what have I done? It's a kangaroo, okay, got it, whoa, that was close. Okay, a hat, okay, this, if I mess this up, I need to go back to school. There it is, it's a hat. But let's say that, you know, I have to draw a goatee. Okay, let's say that I don't even know how to draw a goatee. I'm like a kid. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm gonna draw a sun instead. There we go. Yeah, it's a sun, that's what I'm drawing. And then I say, oh wait, I'm supposed to be drawing a goatee. I totally forgot. Okay, it's a face, and here's the goatee, and he's got a little, there's a little man. Okay, so it doesn't know what I did. So it figured out 4 of my doodles. But what's really interesting is, so this one with the goatee, that clearly wasn't because I didn't know what I was doing. If I click that, it shows what other people drew for a goatee. And so you can sort of show students that it has a general idea of what a goatee might look like because it has lots of images to go on. It says, okay, if there's a circle and there's some little dots there, and then there's a little thing down here, that might be a goatee. But you can explain to students that that's why 99.9% of the time, when you ask AI to make a picture of a guy with a goatee, it'll give you something that looks like this. But every once in a while, it'll give you this because that's in its memory. It said, well, I know what a goatee looks like, and sometimes I think a goatee looks like this. And so that's what a hallucination is essentially. Is it pulling some information that is not associated with it because it was poorly inserted into its data set? But it's a really fun way to play around. So I'll just give you a few minutes to play with those if you haven't. If you've tried one or the other, you can just go to the website if you just Google AutoDraw or QuickDraw. But if you want to do it on your phone, I think they both work on phones, and you can kind of scan the QR code, play with them for a couple seconds if there's one you hadn't played with, and then we'll move along. All right, I'm going to keep moving along through some other tools here. So that's AutoDraw and QuickDraw, fun to play with. So we can see AI has read and seen a lot of information. Obviously, not all of it is true. We've sort of demonstrated that a little bit. Hopefully, we can demonstrate that to our students. So it's important to know where this information came from. So how can we spot AI in the wild? Are there ways to spot it? One tool for this. How might you know if something has been written by AI? And again, these are probably questions that I'd ask different students, but you know, we can share here. How might you know if something has been written by AI? Yeah? Very specific details? Very few specific details. Yeah?
When I use it to make posts, it does the long dash a lot, whatever that's called.
I'll bring that up later.
Or it's when you talk it, and then it's automatic just go, just write what you say, and then it corrects it.
Gotcha.
But if you prompt it just right, it won't sound like AI anymore.
It's getting pretty good. Yeah?
The artwork tends to have like a little thick black lines and shadows.
Oh, interesting.
Cartoon artwork.
Yes.
Kids are really good at identifying that as AI.
Yeah.
It also lists things
In
in groups of 3.
groups of 3? Oh, okay, that's true. It does do that. It likes lists. Yeah, just like every person has a writing style, AI also has a writing style, and different AIs have different writing styles. I don't know if you've talked to Grok or XAI, but it sounds like a 14-year-old boy. That's just how it sounds. So same things with how might you know if a picture is AI. And a tool for this, has anyone used Odd One Out before? I like a lot of these Google tools. They're just free little apps that Google has made. So if I launch Odd One Out, can we spot the odd one out? So we're going to get 4 images, and they're all of the same thing, but one of them will be AI generated. And we have a very short time span to guess which one it is, and you get 4 lives. And so you keep going through sets of images until you lose all your lives. So I'm going to hit go, and I'll see, I'm just going to take a guess at what might be the AI image here. Are we ready? A vestment. I'm going to go with that one. Oh, okay, I got it. So why did that one stand out to me? Well, it was, these ones were pretty detailed. I often find that it can cover a lot of its mistakes by giving it like a style, like an old photograph or something. So sometimes you can notice it like that. This does get pretty tough, though. I also like that it shows where everything else came from. But I'll do another one so you can get an example here. Okay, a generated shell. What do we think? 1, 2, 3, or 4? 4? Oh, very nice. Okay. We are doing really well here. And again, so why did we think that one? I think maybe it had to do with the lighting for me. The kind of, this edge here, yeah, that shadow doesn't look quite right. But there's something kind of in our brain that kind of helps us sometimes because it looks pretty good.
This image and the one before almost looked like there would have been Sharpie written over the top of the image.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, and it's pretty tough. If you'd like to give this one a go, I'll give you a quick minute to try it out if you'd like. It's pretty fun. See what your highest score can be. You only get the 4 lives. All right. I'm going to keep moving, just to keep moving, but hopefully this is that's a fun one that you can use to show students that sometimes there are tiny details. There's something about the way AI generates things that make it recognizable at times. But you do have to know, you have to have looked at a lot of AI usually to be good at it. Same thing with AI generated text. So somebody mentioned the M dash. For whatever reason, ChatGPT loves these M dashes. even if I tell it not to do it, it still often does it. It just says, I'm going to ignore you. I love the M dash. And no student in my life has ever used an M dash, I think. So it's pretty obvious when it's AI. But it started doing that. It didn't used to do the M dash, and then it started, and you really will only notice that if you're using ChatGPT as well. So it is important to use these kind of as well in our everyday life if we're going to teach them to students, because once the M dash started showing up, immediately, if you're using ChatGPT every day, you'll start noticing it. But if you're not, you might not notice that stuff. So it's important to continue using these things ourselves. All right, so prompting AI. Prompting AI, what do you include when you ask AI for information? These are just kind of other questions to get students thinking. How do you know if it's giving you what you wanted? So I have an example here. When was Spider-Man made? So somebody asked me when Spider-Man was made. Spider-Man was made in 2002. Now, do you believe me? Why not? Okay. So yeah. Okay, 2002, right. So 2002 was Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movie. That's when Spider-Man was made. Okay. So ask me again when Spider-Man was made. Try to get the right answer out of me. The first Spider-Man? Ooh, that's a good one. So, because the first Spider-Man comic, if you ask me that, I might say 1963, first Spider-Man comic. You say, that sounds pretty accurate, that's about the right time. But that was the first issue of The Amazing Spider-Man. He got drawn in another comic before that in 1962. So, yeah, but if a student doesn't know how old Spider-Man is, 2002 for a lot of our students is forever ago, they're like, I don't know, people from then are probably dead by now, so so they're like, sure, that's how old he is. So if they didn't know that my first answer was wrong, they would probably just write that down as their answer. And 1963 even sounds pretty accurate. It sounds, even if you get pretty specific, when was the first Spider-Man comic book created? And you think that that's got to be the right answer, but that's still not when Spider-Man was created. So getting students to kind of request better answers in the future and getting them to understand that it's important that they do some research before they talk to AI, because otherwise, who knows what AI will tell them, and they'll never know if it was wrong or not. So another tool that I like for this activity is Say What You See. Has anyone used Say What You See? This one's pretty cool, for one, because you get to make pictures with it. So it tries to get you to think about prompting. So what it'll do is it'll give you a picture, and you try to get the exact same picture, as close as you can, by prompting for a new image. So I will begin here. That's a tough one. So let's see. I'm going to put my mic down, try describing what I see. Okay, so it is I'm going to say, gradient from top to bottom, from teal to pink. I think that's pretty good. And I only have 120 words to do this. So it's going to generate a new image, and then, okay. It did it horizontal, right? It is from top to bottom, but it threw some extra pizzazz in there. So tool to describe the style, is it abstract, minimalist, something else? So it'll give you kind of ideas. So we did pretty well. We got a 79% match. So this one's pretty interesting. Okay, who wants to tell me what I should include here in my prompt? Okay, probably chessboard, right? Chessboard. What else should I include? What's that? Oh, only black pieces. Okay. On what? Oh yeah. Yeah. Spread out across board. What else? On the beach. On the empty beach. We're thinking now. Okay, let's say looking to see. Okay. Oh, midday? Midday. No clouds. Okay, and we're kind of running out there. So, oh, but I will do one more thing because I think this looks like a photograph. Oh, we are looking at this photograph. 120, we hit our absolute cap on characters. Not bad, not bad. It totally ignored the only black pieces. So again, you can see that, yeah, AI, it sometimes just ignores things. But I like this little brain here. Elaborate on the style of the photograph. For example, is it black and white or color? Is it minimalist? Does it have an aesthetic? This is kind of like a faded photograph. It feels like older, so we could have included that maybe. But this is a really fun tool to kind of teach students to just think deeper when they prompt AI. So they don't just stop at chessboard on beach. Well, that's not really what it is, you know? And it's the same with when you prompt with text, you know? Well, what are you really trying to get from it? Make sure you're very specific. So a pretty fun tool as well. I think I had us playing with this tool, but I'll just drop that there. But I think I have a lot more to get to. So I'm gonna keep moving on. You can play with it later. Prompt generation. So a few things to remember with prompt generation that I like to do. Provide context. So instead of what is a good treadmill workout, I'm a 39-year-old man, about 180 pounds with a sedentary lifestyle. I'm just getting back into fitness, want a beginner-friendly treadmill workout for heart health. So lots of very specific things. Not that this is me typing this into ChatGPT last weekend, because I spend too much time in my office chair. But you put very specific things in. Help me plan a trip. It doesn't know you. It doesn't know what kind of trip you want to go on. What's a 5-day budget-friendly trip to Portugal in October? Because the weather is going to change what you're going to do on your trip. The time of year, there's different things happening. What do you actually like doing when you travel? Recommend daily activities, estimated costs. Yeah, make sure it knows that you're not a millionaire. Be very specific. Provide parameters. So write a story about a robot. And this is good for teachers as well, obviously, because it needs to know who our students are, what we're using the story for. So providing parameters that it can build within. An output structure. Instead of compare two cell phone plans, I say maybe a table with columns. That'll really help me out. So you can kind of give it an output structure. And this is a bonus. This is just something that I actually do. And I'm not sure why. I think it makes me more or less confident if I ask questions before I ask questions. So what do I mean by that? Instead of write a story in the style of Hemingway, what do you understand about Hemingway's writing style? Because sometimes it comes back and this can answer a lot of questions as to what it's actually familiar with and if I agree with it or not. So I'll say, I'm interested in getting this information about this book. Do you know this book? What do you know about this book? And sometimes I'm familiar with the book and I say, you don't really know this book. So I like to ask lots of questions before I actually start prompting it. Okay, so that's some information literacy stuff. So how can we use AI to break down our task? Because a lot of students, once they have a big research assignment, like researching a historical figure, they might say, how do I start? Where do I get started? I'm very scared. I'm looking at a blank sheet of paper. So let's say they have their assignment here, and they need to break it down. Has anyone used Goblin Tools? No? Okay. Goblin Tools is pretty fun, and I know adults who use it, but I think it's probably very useful for students who just need help breaking big things down and you don't have time to go to each student and kind of help them break it all down. So that has a magic breakdown box here. So I'm gonna type in what I'm working on and it'll break it down for me. So I'm in 9th grade. I have to write a 1,000-word paper about a historical figure of my choosing. I'm being graded on accuracy, citations, and word count. Sure. All right, so let's have it. So now it's a little task, and I can say, break down this item. How do I do this? And it'll try to break it down into a number of different checkboxes that they can check off. So yeah, this is good for adults too. If I have like a big task at home that I have to accomplish, I say, how do I even start this? So this is pretty cool, but not only does it break that down into tasks, sometimes even things that seem like it's done a good job maybe, but let's say we say cite your sources properly within the text as you write. And you say, well, how do I do that? Can you break that down for me? And it'll try to break that down even further, and you can go on forever. Sometimes it gets very funny and it goes into strange loops. But even things that we think are obvious, like choose a historical figure that interests you, sometimes they say, how do I do that? How do I choose something that interests me? I'm not sure if that's just me at a junior high school. Yeah, so like I said, sometimes it does funny things, but think about historical figures you have learned about or find interesting. Consider why you find them interesting, which actually I think is a good point, because sometimes they say, I heard about this person. Okay, but why did that person stand out to you? What do you actually like about that person? And sometimes they haven't really thought about that, you know? And they're like, well, I don't know. I guess I liked his hat, you know, or something. But it can break down stuff that we take for granted, that we just assume they're going to be able to do. And this is a tool they can use outside of class as well. So Goblin Tools is pretty cool. There's some other tools there as well, you can see, but I always like to use that magic to do one. I'm going to keep moving just to make sure I actually get through everything. So how can we use AI to understand our sources? So we've broken down our task. I'm not really going to go into finding sources right now because, like I said, you're all professional librarians and you know what resources you have available to you and which ones you don't. So I'm not going to go too much into that, but what do you do once you've helped students find some information, whether it's a website or an encyclopedia or an online encyclopedia, a YouTube video, whatever it is, how can we engage with some of this information? Has anyone used Diffit before? Diffit is pretty cool. One thing that I want to point out, and it's kind of unrelated to our historical search, but leveling content is, I've always found very useful. And it was very, very time consuming and difficult to do before AI, and it's actually so much nicer now in a lot of ways. But Diffit actually, they've paid for the rights to a lot of books, including a lot of award-winning books. And so they have a big list of these books that they have access to, and you can get certain chapters and tell it exactly what you want it leveled for, and it'll break down the chapter for different students, which is pretty cool if you're doing like a book club or something around a certain award-winning book and you know that you have students that are gonna maybe have a more difficult time engaging with that book, you can break it down for them with Diffit, and it actually has access to those books. So that's a little thing that I didn't know it had, and it's pretty cool. But it can break down lots of things, it can level lots of things, like a website, for instance. So if I have this Stanford article about Martin Luther King Jr., and I asked Diffit to break it down, it tends to make sentences much shorter, which is very nice. If we see the comparisons here, I also like that it just throws an exclamation point in there. It says, because over here it says, here's some information. Here it says, this is exciting stuff, guys. It actually tries to kind of amp it up for them as well. But very short sentences to kind of help students engage. And like I said, other options are available. Who's used Magic School before? Quite a few. Magic School has very similar things, and it works in a very similar way. It makes the sentences much more condensed for younger readers. And a lot of them, you can create very quick summary, short answer questions, and many other things as well. But one thing I like about this is you can very quickly kind of create exit slips for students when they're doing something, but personalized. So if they have a character, you can say, okay, give me one of your sources, and then you can actually create a very short exit slip for them based on one of their sources that they found that you've approved, and pretty cool. I'm going to go into Notebook LM now, which is something I love. Has anyone used Notebook LM? Okay, a few people. Notebook LM is from Google. You do need a Google account to use Notebook LM, but it is so useful. So what you can do with it, you can add sources, and it's kind of a workspace when doing research. But I think if you're a Google school especially, this is a very easy way for students to keep a bunch of resources together as one little project. And you can approve these resources, and they can engage with them in some really, really cool ways. So we can add links, we can add websites, we can put YouTube videos in here, any sources they find. So here's an example. I just put in some URLs for different things of different kind of qualities. Wikipedia, history.com, Britannica, and I also threw in a YouTube video and a PDF as well, just to see what it did with those. And so this is their workspace, and you'll have your sources here, and it creates a sort of summary, but it has lots of ways to engage with this. And one thing I find is maybe they're doing a paper, but really doing a paper about a historical figure and not having a focus, I find that it's almost sabotaging the student, because there's so much information there, and they don't know what to focus on maybe, or what parts are interesting to them. And so I always like them to have a focus within their thing. And I find the mind map is super useful, because all it does is it goes through the sources. You can click on your character here, whatever you're researching, and it creates a list of kind of ideas that keep showing up in these sources. And then you can click on one of those, and it splits it out even further. And so I said, oh, criticism within the movement. That's pretty interesting. You know, maybe people don't know that there were different people arguing about the ways to achieve the things he was trying to achieve. And there were different criticisms within that. And so then they might say, they can go back to their Notebook LM page and just ask it. He was criticized within the civil rights movement? And then it comes up with some information about that. And they're just talking to their documents, though, their sources. And you can see it actually has little footnotes, and these are footnotes to the sources that they've put in. So once you've approved the sources, they can actually just have a conversation with those sources, which is pretty cool. And if you click the footnote, it'll bring that source up. This can also be leveled. So you can say respond at a 5th grade level with shorter responses. So when they might find some really academic sources, that's okay, because here's the original and here's the change it made. So instead of charismatic, it changed that to famous, basically. Instead of elite figures, they're important rich people. Kind of more easy to understand. It kind of leveled the language there. But like with the graphic novel presentation, some students, they do better with different kind of multimedia formats. And there are lots of kind of ways that you can have it summarize your information, like audio overviews and video overviews. Has anyone used audio overviews with Google? A few people. If you haven't, it's incredible. It makes a podcast for you, and there's 2 hosts, and they're talking about it, and it's really, really incredible. It also can make video outputs here. They're very simple, but it can do them. So I will go over to my Notebook LM. Which I believe I already had pulled up. Boop, 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 boop. Okay. And I think this is the one that I was just in. Doesn't have my other sources right now. That's okay. So I exported some things. For one, you can have it export little quizzes, which is cool. But here is an audio overview.
We're here to take those familiar historical figures and events, the ones you think you know, and really peel back the layers, find the surprising stuff underneath. Today we're doing exactly that with Martin Luther King Jr. looking at his life, his legacy, but going way...
So it made a 16-minute podcast for me with 2 different hosts, just based on these sources though, so it's not going out elsewhere and finding information that you haven't approved. And it can do things with video as well. They're very simple. It's basically like a PowerPoint, but if students just respond better to having some visual information to track as well.
When you hear the name Martin Luther King Jr., you probably picture a monument, maybe a national holiday.
And it's pretty incredible stuff. So to have one place where they can kind of create projects and do research, and then interact with it in a really meaningful way. I just think Notebook LM is quite fascinating. So unfortunately, if you're not a Google school right now, that's a Google product, and I believe they need a Google login. But I'm sure in the future, there's going to be many more opportunities for this. I'm sure Magic School is working on some very similar stuff as well. So I just wanted to point that out. So getting closer to our historical figure, we've got to interview them. But sometimes before I do an interview, I would probably recommend that the student has done all of the research, has already gone into their information with Notebook LM. They've done their research. And if they want to know why, well, I'll say, well, you're a reporter. You have to know what questions to ask. And then go back to our, if you don't know what information you're asking, or you don't have the background knowledge, you don't know if they're lying or not. You don't know if it's true or not. So you're basically a reporter. And you have to know when things aren't adding up. Has anyone used Mizzou? No? Mizzou, it's I just wanted to point this one out to show that there are other places to go for different products. This one's pretty cool. You can create a chatbot, and many chatbots have been created for different historical figures and things like that. And you can go in and see which ones have been created by teachers and what sources they used. School AI, I saw a couple people. Who's used School AI? I saw a couple people in the sign-in form has used School AI, which is very similar. You can integrate it with Clever if you use Clever. But what's really nice about these, both Mizzou and School AI, is that the students don't need to log in. This is just, you log in, you create your spaces, and then they can engage with them. So if you wanted to create a chatbot for Martin Luther King Jr., you could go in and you could give it a prompt. You could even give it your standards, whatever state, whatever standards you use. You can add the files that you want it to reference when talking. And yes, there were various leaders with different philosophies on how to achieve goals. And you could just ask it questions. So you can create this chatbot. I kind of like this one though, because it gives these like italics, like a character. So it kind of gives visuals of how the figure is responding, which is kind of fun. And also very cool is that you can see your students and what they're actually typing. So you can see all their questions, you can see all the answers, and see how they're interacting with it. And it gives them little grades and stuff and sees how they're doing. So I'm going to show you. Let's see here. Sure, I made a little space here for a bot. So go ahead and log into my bot and have a chat with it. And this bot is specifically designed to talk to librarians about AI. So anything that you're interested in with AI literacy and different approaches to AI literacy, you can test my bot. But I wanted to make this bot with a little bit of a personality. So you might see as you start chatting with the bot that it also has other things on its mind. And I'll log in and show you how I can actually see what everyone's typing. So make sure you don't get too crazy. Okay, all right, look at this. we can see everyone here. And I'll let you just try it out. Ask it some information about ideas that you've had today with AI literacy, concerns you have about AI literacy. Get a sense of how it's responding. We'll chat about its responses in a moment. All right. So hopefully you've asked a couple questions here. Let's go back. Let's take a look at my dashboard here. I'll refresh this. I haven't tried it with this many people before. Okay. And you see it gives a little summary, people just getting started, student engaged in AI citation strategies using MLA. Nice work. And it gives little summaries on all of my people over here and how they're all doing with AI and what they're talking about. The user raised a thoughtful question about whether AI will take away student creativity. Users interested in integrating AI tools with K through 4th grade students is seeking ideas. All right. Billy Bob Thornton, the user is interested. Yeah, we have 2 Billy Bob Thorntons. That was our test character when we were making this. So we have some Billy Bob Thornton ideas here. And Billy Bob Thornton engaged in critical research and verification. So good job, Billy. All right. I tried to give it a little bit of a personality. Did it have something else on its mind? Maybe. It was hungry. It was. Because I knew that this would be the last presentation before lunch. And so I knew that he would be getting hungry, my poor little robot. So you can make a chatbot, you can give it very specific instructions, and you can even give it a personality. If there's like an in-joke that you have with your students, you can throw that in there, and it'll reference that, and it's pretty fun. Did anyone have anything that they asked it that they thought was useful or not useful? Anything interesting? Yeah.
From your digit thing, I have teachers who have to use a lot of these, so I just asked it, how can AI teach a novel? And then it just gave me all kinds of things until I narrowed it down to how can it help me teach vocabulary with this novel, and it was good stuff.
Nice. Cool. Awesome. Anyone else? Anything they asked that was interesting? Yeah.
I had it mentioned teachable machine, and I had it explain teachable machine using tacos because
There's hundreds of tacos.
So it said teachable machine is a fun way to explore AI. It's like building your own taco. Here's how it works: collect the ingredients, train your AI, add the ingredients, do the taste test. It's kind of good.
Anyone else?
It offered, so I asked about using AI tools that keep student data safe and that complies with FERPA and so on. And I asked it for websites that would do that. Google Workspace, Kahoot, and Modo, and Flipgrid were 4 suggestions that it offered that had transparent policies.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, yeah.
This was nothing. We thought this was looking at ISTE. We used this at ISTE and it was so fun. They made one of these chatbots on School AI where it was like a buzz quiz, like the kids could answer questions and it would like tell them what character in the book they were. And by the end it would give them a fun YouTube video. So they set it up as a fun little thing.
That is fun. Yeah, and there are definitely different ways of doing this. Obviously, you could do it with a historical figure if you wanted and have them chat. That's kind of how I started thinking about it. But obviously, you can do it as a brainstorming partner. You can do it as like the little bot that's just for your classroom. And you can kind of tell it exactly like, this is the bot that you use when you do AI work in this classroom. And you can give it very specific instructions like never write anything for the student. So if they say, write something for me, and say, only if they ask you to write something, give it suggestions on how they might do that instead. And then it'll always say, that's a great idea. I can't do that for you, but you might want to start by doing this and this and this. And you can see what all of your students have typed into it, so you can always check up on it. And like you saw, none of you had to sign up to do it. You just share the link, and they're in your little bot. So I think that's a pretty cool use case. So delivering our information with AI, because once the students, let's say, have come up with some ideas, how might we deliver those ideas? Has anyone seen these talking tours? This is a pretty cool way of doing geography with students, but and right now this is just a little Google project, so we can't make our own yet. But when we can make our own, and I'm sure that's coming, I think this is a very cool way that students might use if they're doing a historical figure to go somewhere in the world and investigate and present on it. So, yes, my volume is up. So you can see there's lots of landmarks, there's different nature areas in the world. I'm gonna go to landmarks because I just got to go to the Taj Mahal in April, so we're gonna go there. Oh, we need landmarks. Here we go. Boop, 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 boom. Agra. Okay, so we are at the Taj Mahal, and what it'll do, it'll look at this picture and say what it sees, essentially. Takes a quick second here.
Most people don't know that the Taj Mahal, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is not just a tomb, but also a masterpiece of Mughal architecture, designed to represent paradise on earth. Its intricate marble inlay work, known as P16, is a testament to the incredible craftsmanship of the era. Did you know that the entire structure is symmetrical, with the only exception being the placement of the sarcophagus inside the main mausoleum?
True. So pretty cool, and you can move around just like a Google Street View, but if you take a new snapshot, like if I go over here, in theory, it'll look at this building and think about what it's seeing over here as well. I chose this one because since I just went here, I'll know if it's lying or not, so we'll find out.
Did you know that this building, often referred to as the Taj Mahal Gateway or the Great Gate, is actually an entrance to the Taj Mahal complex? It's constructed with red sandstone, a stark contrast to the white marble of the main mausoleum, and features intricate calligraphy of Quranic verses.
It thought it was looking at this building. I did this the other day though, and it did recognize this building, but it thought we were just looking at the gate, which I do see similarities, so I understand that. But it's a pretty cool tool, and as this becomes more available for people to make their own versions, I think that'll be really fun. So I want to point that out. But one thing that we can use right now is something called Presto. Has anyone used Presto? No? Okay. Presto is kind of a way where you can create templates. So let's say I create a historical hero template if they're doing research on a certain historical figure. And I can give them little blocks in which to write their information. So it basically helps them organize their information. And you can create little possibilities for the beginning of their sentences just to kind of get them thinking, to get them typing, so that hopefully the rest of the sentence keeps coming after that. You can also add different words that you might want to see in their paper if it's about a historical figure. And then whenever one of those words is added to their thing, this gets checked off. So it's something that they can kind of gets them started. They understand exactly what needs to be in each block. It'll help them get started writing, and it'll say, oh, I haven't used the word, this or that before, whichever words you choose to put in there, which is pretty cool. And it's definitely customizable, but one thing that's really neat about it as well is if a student says, okay, I'm done, I did it. It took me 4 minutes, my whole thing is done, I'm great. You could tell them to click on this little guy up here. Look at this little clippy looking guy. And he will give a hint. And these hints can really go on forever. So this can keep people busy for a long time. So if they wrote this, wow, you use vivid details. In conclusion, take your writing one step further by explaining the greater impact of this journey. And it'll just give them more ideas on things that, well, that's great. So I went in and I told it, I wrote a little thing about Napoleon. I said, I like Napoleon. He had a really cool hat and he rode a horse. And it was like, well, that's great. I love the details about the hat and the horse. Maybe think about this and this. Maybe think about some historical details, maybe a favorite battle or something. And you can keep clicking that until you say, okay, you filled out all the blocks, you've done the words, and you've added enough detail. But that can really help them and help you maybe save some time by saying, well, let's see what this little guy has to say. Is there anything else we could add? Let's keep thinking and pushing ourselves forward. So Presto is a pretty cool tool as well. Adobe Express for Education, not a lot of people have access to Adobe Express for Education, but I just wanted to point it out because Adobe, like Google, is doing a lot of really cool stuff And I always just like to know what is possible with AI, even if I don't have access to it myself, so that I can be brainstorming and thinking about it in the future. You can animate characters. So I did this one right here. And basically you can just talk into your mic, like if they have a Chromebook, and it'll just animate their character for them.
So my report was about Martin Luther King Jr., so I chose a doctor. He wasn't a medical doctor like this one, but he was a doctor of philosophy, but still a doctor. And I put him in a library because, well, I don't think you become a doctor without reading a lot of books.
So just kind of a fun way to present information. And the nice thing about Adobe Education, Adobe Express for Education, is it's all kind of integrated. So you can have them build websites, and they can integrate anything they've made elsewhere, like their little talking figures. And it's a nice kind of multimedia way of presenting. So my last little section here, what would I ask students afterward? Well, there's a lot of questions about their subject, but also about their process, because I'm always more interested in what they learned about a process and a skill than kind of the information itself. You know, I have students that would tell me about crazy stuff that they're learning, like the emu wars in Australia, and I love hearing about it. But then I'm like, okay, but what did you have to learn that information? I'm really curious. So obviously, we'd ask them about who did you research, what kind of facts surprised you, what's a key moment or decision in their lives. But I'd ask them a lot about AI as well. Where was AI most useful in your project? Where was it least useful? Think about how you talked to the AI. What are some important things you'll remember about prompting? Is AI always right? Obviously, I'd want to see if they remember all of the stuff about AI literacy that we've been working on. How can you check the work of an AI? So lots of questions about the actual process of using AI in our research. What's one thing you would not trust AI to do in the future? Take care of my dog. Okay, so that's everything I had. So hopefully, like I said, you might not have access to all of this stuff, but I want to at least present it so that you get some different ideas as to what it can do, what you might be able to do with it in the future, and come away with at least 1 or 2 ideas that you might use. And this is just a link to my slideshow if you want it for later. I'll send out an email afterward as well. But that is all I've got for you.